Hello, America. Welcome to the Junto Podcast, where we promote the practical applications of critical thinking and bold creativity. I am your host, Edgar Mills. Thanks for joining us. Hey, America. Welcome back to the Junto Podcast. Thanks for staying with me. Every time I sit down to record an episode, I'm reminded of a quote. And that quote is, "It's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt." Now, that quote may or may not be attributed to Abraham Lincoln or Mark Twain or from a book from an author named Maurice Schweitzer. I'm not sure the actual origin of it, but there's a lot of wisdom in that. So what I hope here is that by speaking, I do not confirm that I am a fool. And I'm going to share some things with you that I've been looking at to try to keep from being a fool. Today, we are talking about the application of Stoic philosophy to our everyday life. Well, and to politics and to business. We're gonna talk about those philosophies that, and specifically we're going to focus on Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, and then the philosophies they espoused, and they are known as the great Stoics, and there's several others, but these three are of the most famous, and then the philosophies that they espoused. I think we forget modern day, especially the hyper partisan politics and things like that we see today. We kind of forget the foundations of some of the way we think and why we think the things we do. And I talk a lot about Christianity and libertarianism a lot, but a lot of the libertarian foundation is composed of Stoic philosophy. So here we go. We're going to see how we can improve ourselves by maybe applying some of these. Stoicism focuses on virtue, focuses on self-control and reason, and just these three things alone align, with libertarian principles for sure, that promote autonomy, personal accountability, and those kinds of things. The things we need, the things that we should have to be productive members of society. So we're going to talk about these core principles from these three guys that I just mentioned. Epictetus, the sort of the epitome of what his philosophy is: control what you can and accept what you cannot. So we don't have control over many things in our lives, and we do have control over many things, but the things you have control over, that's what you focus on. The things that you can't control, the things that you have no sway over, you have to accept it to a degree, or at least tolerate it. And you can think, oh, well, there is a way to control it. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But one of the key quotes from Epictetus was, and this was in discourses. Now, Epictetus didn't write discourses. He had a scribe or a apprentice who wrote everything down that he said. So I think it's understood that Epictetus didn't actually write this, but he did actually say it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. I know that's kind of vague, but it's also very specific. Responsible for how you respond to things, how you react to things. And ultimately, everything, even how you respond to a thing, is a choice that you have control over. So focus on what's within your control, your thoughts and your actions, your attitude. Yeah, I said in the last episode that I have a very optimistic attitude these days. I look at things in a very positive, can-do light because I want good things to happen, and I've made a choice to change my attitude, to believe and make good things happen. The things that are out of your control, let go of them. external events, other people's opinions, other people's actions. Yeah, we can't control other people's actions. We can't control, well, for something in modern day, I mean, we can't control the price of friggin' eggs, man. We can stop buying eggs from Publix and go buy some hens, right? So if it's a thing that, if it affects you enough, change what you can change. Because again, I don't think there's anything we can do to control the price of eggs, right? Or the price of gas. And now we can take that a couple of steps out and go, well, we can vote and try to get somebody in who will affect that. Yeah, maybe not. It's relevant to our daily lives today, because even that quote alone, just control what you can, accept what you cannot, have power over your mind. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you'll find strength. This pushes personal responsibility, which everybody should strive for that. You should take responsibility for your actions, for your choices. You absolutely should. And well, that personal responsibility and accountability is kind of the cornerstone of libertarian thought process, because it emphasizes individual agency over these external circumstances. Again, I can't control your opinion of me. I can just control the way I present myself. Marcus Aurelius, he saw virtue as like the highest form of goodness. And a quote from Meditations, which he did write: if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. Good people, that's about as no frills as it gets right there. If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. Man, I love that. It's so, this is ancient philosophy here, folks, that applies exactly to today. There wasn't just context, right? It wasn't just in the context of, whatever was going on in 500 BC. Yeah. Live according to reason and virtue. And this virtue, we're talking about justice, courage, wisdom, temperance, all the good things that everybody knows to be virtuous traits, regardless of external pressures. Don't let social pressure or political pressure or whatever your little echo chamber, whatever the voices in there are, or even carnal pressure. Yeah. Don't give in to that stuff. Don't let that sway your ability to reason and your integrity and your virtue. That's easier said than done. I know it is. Especially the carnal bit. That'll get some of us. But these days you see it more. The social media, man, it's having such an influence on young minds and older minds for that matter. There's baby boomers and Gen Xers who are as addicted to social media as any millennial or Gen Z or whatever. How's it relevant to our life today? Well, clearly that promotes integrity and rational decision making. And in a very libertarian way, it is counter to the mob mentality or the collective. And it's counter to coercive systems. If every individual follows that key quote right there, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. If every individual followed that philosophy, then the collective and your little mob mentality, everybody would be reasonable. And it would just be a social club at that point instead of an angry mob. Yep. Integrity and rational decision making. I think we need some of that. And then Seneca, embrace adversity and practice self-discipline. That was his thing. What's a quote from Seneca's Letters from a Stoic? We are more often frightened than hurt. We suffer more from imagination than reality. I think we can apply that today in big style. Yeah, I think that applies big style. Adversity is an opportunity for growth. Practice self-discipline to overcome fear and desire. Now, adversity as an opportunity. I talked about that on the last episode on this paradox of constraints, right? Use obstacles as guides. Don't look at it as an obstacle. Look at it as a guide. Look at it as an opportunity. And that's exactly what Seneca is saying right here. And how is it relevant today is that it also encourages resilience, like being tough against these obstacles, not just crumbling under the first sign of resistance. And this kind of helps us avoid relying on systems, right? On these big systems, and helps us escape that sort of safety blanket of any sort of built-in security that we get from other sources other than ourselves. Yeah. Don't rely on the government. Don't rely on outside sources for your well-being. Practice self-discipline to overcome fear and desire and roadblocks and whatever adversity may come your way. So what's the libertarian connection to all these Stoic quotes I just threw out there? Stoicism very much focuses on being the master of yourself and making rational choices. And those things are very libertarian and in practice. Yeah. Minimal external interference. And I say external not just to mean minimal government interference, but that's the libertarian idea. And maximum personal accountability. Yep, maximum personal accountability. So Stoicism and libertarianism are very, very complementary. Well, in fact, I think libertarianism is largely built off of the Stoic philosophy. Stoic philosophies, multiple. All right, so I'm talking about practical application. I'm not just talking about big philosophical ideas. I'm talking about how do we practically apply those in political discourse, modern political discourse. So the current state of politics, we know, because I talk about this a lot, hyperpolarization, hyperpartisan rhetoric, extremes. I want to say Barack Obama just said something to the effect, man, damn, I meant to hold on to that quote. He just said it recently. And then he referred to something as violence that was clearly just an opposing idea. It wasn't violence at all. Calling everything violence, right? Living in your echo chamber on TikTok or on whatever, and letting your emotions dominate interact. That's what the political discourse of today is. Even not just amongst the people on the social medias. That's what you see in Congress. Go listen to any 10-minute clip of Ocasio-Cortez. Listen to any 10-minute clip of her. It's pure emotion. Yeah, 100%, man. She's so egregious by every single thing. Any Republican idea whatsoever, she's egregious by it. That's the state of politics today. What else do we see today? It's collectivism versus individualism. The collectivism is rampant. Everybody's on a team. Everybody's on the red and blue team, as opposed to executing and living, sort of as an individual and embracing individualism. We're in this state of identity politics. And any debates, they prioritize some big, what we want to classify as a marginalized group identity, as opposed and some big federal state solution over individual agency and individual accountability. Yeah, well, that's what we're seeing that in politics. If you disagree with that, please reach out. Even if you are on the other side of the aisle from me, wherever that is, do you disagree that identity politics is prevalent right now? And then another thing we're seeing is this business of cancel culture. If you said something I disagree with, I say that it's violence and that it shouldn't, and then try to get you or your platform or get you deplatformed. Now, cancel culture may be waning, but we see it with this Jimmy Kimmel situation. Now, I think Jimmy Kimmel's an absolute turd. I didn't even like Jimmy Kimmel when he was on the Man Show in the 90s or early 2000s or whatever. But his show got canceled and then reinstated. Well, there's two very significant points to make here, and none of us know the truth. But if, in fact, the administration used the FCC to pressure a network to cancel Jimmy Kimmel, that is bad. I think we all agree on that. The government should not use its power to suppress free speech and to suppress a company, ABC, from airing whatever it is they want to air. But on the flip side, if ABC simply canceled Jimmy Kimmel because they thought he was an absolute douchebag and his ratings were demonstrably low over X amount of time, and he was costing them too much money, and they just used this particular incident with the Charlie Kirk situation as a good time. It just happened to be, okay, well, this is a good time to get rid of Kimmel, right? Then that is perfectly within their right. And that is not cancel culture at all. That is ABC making a strategic decision to cut the dead weight, just like they did with just like that other dude, Colbert. Yeah. Bad ratings equal cancellation. It's always been a thing. Now, I don't know anything about the TV business, but I know if you get bad ratings, you get canceled. They were probably on life support anyway, just for partisan. Now, and we all know that Hollywood is, by and large, extreme kind of leftists. So the fact that he was on life support for that long is odd enough. The fact that he got canceled is not that odd, but then it was used as a hyper-partisan talking point. Oh my God, we're suppressing free speech because of Jimmy Kimmel. Whatever. Madness. I hate talking about topics of the day. I'm back on cancel culture. What I'm saying here is cancel culture does persist. It's a part of the political environment. Fear of social ostracism persists because if you say the wrong thing on Instagram, then you're going to get the mob at your door. And it stifles it. Cancel culture stifles free speech and freedom of expression. Now, that's a gigantic, humongous concern for libertarians who are absolute champions of free speech. If you're a public figure, that should bother you. At some point in time, Mark Ruffalo could be canceled. And then it's going to be, oh my God, the tyranny. Right now, he spouts off communist nonsense on the reg. I don't see him getting canceled, right? So when it works for you, it's good. When it works against you, it's bad. So I wouldn't say Voltaire was a Stoic, but he said this. It's a great one. It's dangerous to be right in matters in which the established authorities are wrong. And whether you're right or wrong, it means that the established authorities have too much friggin' power to suppress and oppress you. So don't worry about what Jimmy Kimmel said, or don't worry about what Alex Jones says. Worry about anyone who would suppress their speech, because that is the definition of fascism. Yeah. Don't worry about what opinion's being said. Take it, process it, and do what you will with it. Be an independent thinker and disregard or, adopt. Be worried about the people who would cancel those people, who would suppress them. Either one of them, Alex Jones or Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah. So the applications, that's what I started this off with. How do we apply that to our daily life? Well, Epictetus tells us his philosophy tells us that we should focus on our own reason and our own reasoning, not the collective reasoning, because collectives don't reason. And selective outrage. That's what the mob mentality does. They have selective outrage. Oh my God, Jimmy Kimmel. But one mob thinks that the murder of Charlie Kirk was a joyful, gleeful moment. And then Jimmy Kimmel gets canceled, and there is absolute woe and despair throughout Hollywood. And on vice versa. Vice versa. You got a whole half of the population mourning the loss of just a public figure, that they agreed with. Whereas anybody who says anything, oh, I didn't agree, then it's absolute outrage and cancellation. So here's the practical application, folks. Instead of reacting to all this inflammatory garbage, evaluate arguments rationally. And then if it comes to debate, and that debate is sane and civil, great. If it becomes unproductive and emotionally charged, cut away. You don't lose because you cut away from an irrational debate. Have the debate, for sure. But if it's going in circles, give it about 1 or 2 laps and then be done with it. Because when it comes to these extremes, by the way, like it's pretty difficult in one single sitting to change someone's mind. I mean, you might be that guy. You might be that charming son of a bitch that is able to, sell somebody beachfront property in friggin' Montana. You know what I mean? But generally speaking, that one debate ain't going to change too many people's minds. Now, if that debate is televised or on a viral friggin' whatever, and millions of people see it, yeah, you might change some minds. You might get a couple of people. But if you're just sitting in a pub, well, you know what? I'm not even going to say that. Sitting in a pub. Guess what? People are more apt to be rational sitting in the pub having a pint. They're more apt to have a rational conversation with somebody they disagree with. Now, 5 pints into it, that might be a little different. But that's where we have moderation, folks, and be reasonable adults. If you're sitting around and you're debating divisive issues, friggin' gun rights, illegal immigration, theft, or as it's commonly known, taxation, ask yourself the question, what can I control here? And then ask yourself, how can I respond with objective reason and not emotion? If you're starting to get fired up and you're starting to get emotionally charged, you've already lost the debate. Now it's just a yelling match. So don't even participate in that. And there's your practical advice on dealing with that. Marcus Aurelius, his philosophies, just tells us that we need to be just and truthful. Well, almost all zealots believe that they are just and truthful, however misguided they may be, left or right. But when you're having a debate with someone at the pub, be honest, be just, and try to see the other side. Avoid your tribalism. Avoid your team talking points. Avoid the echo chamber talking points. And just to have good faith dialogue. And more importantly, refuse to demonize your opponent, your debate mate, or their team. Don't lump them in with a team unless that's where they're standing on. If they're debating as their team and they're the de facto spokesperson. Don't demonize the individual and don't demonize the team, however misguided they may be. That is the tactic of Saul Alinsky. That is the tactic of Joseph Goebbels and every other authoritarian, totalitarian, fascist dictator or theocratic zealot That's the tactics of those people. And if you're using those tactics, but then excusing the use of those tactics because your side's right, you're all fucked up. Don't demonize other people as a course of debate or as an argument. If you're debating over the free market versus regulation, sort of social government regulation, just focus on the principles. Focus on the things that matter: property rights, competition, scarcity, etc. Don't throw out cheap attacks. If you just start telling somebody they're a commie, you're losing the fight. You have to have better. You have to speak from some factual and evidential stuff there. Saying you're a commie don't have any juice. It feels good to you, probably, I guess, but just telling somebody they're a commie don't have any juice. Now, unless you're friends, and then it's jokes, you know what I mean? But especially in that particular debate, just calmly compare and define communism and point out the doctrine of communism and point out actual instances of how it's incompatible with a constitutional republic and a genuine free market economy. There's enough facts out there, folks. There's enough facts of the failures of communism over and over and over and over and over again that you don't need to resort to attacks, personal attacks. And from Seneca perspective, right? So embrace adversity in political. Yeah, view your political opponents. I'm not going to say your political enemies, folks. I think we're starting to water down words to the point where they're losing their meaning. Enemy is a strong word. Enemy is a very strong word. View your political opposition and a debate with those folks as a chance to refine your own argument and refine your own views. Yeah, because if you're a rational human and you actually do hear something that makes sense coming out of their mouth, that doesn't mean you got to switch sides, right? That just means you're taking what they're saying, you're processing it and seeing value in that one piece of information and going, oh yeah, that's correct. How does that reinforce your views, or how does that disprove your views or discount your view? Yeah, maybe. Don't look at it as a threat. And don't look at it as an attack on your personal identity, providing that your personal identity isn't solely based on your flawed political doctrine or your sexual identity or whatever. I talk about this all the time, but I mean, your kind of identity should probably encompass more than just that one thing. So don't look at political disagreement as a threat on your personal identity. That's what causes the emotion. And then the irrational responses and the people yelling in each other's faces and shit like that. Now, if you're out there and you're a public figure or you're on a podcast or you do whatever it is you do and you have gotten canceled for a controversial opinion, you know what? Take it for what it is. Accept the external judgment that's outside of your control, because I have no juice with X or Instagram or Facebook. If they cancel my profile or whatever, then that's what's happened. I might be able to work around a little bit. I might be able to rebuild a little bit, whatever. That's outside of my control. But what is in my control, I'm going to continue to focus on. I'm not going to let that taint my integrity or my purpose. So accept what you can't control. Look for alternatives, but maintain your integrity. Maintain your integrity, folks. And maintain your sense of purpose, because without the sense of purpose, the rest of it's kind of irrelevant. So all these philosophies and examples I'm getting, how can the Stoic philosophies benefit the political discourse? I've already given you some examples of how to apply these in your arguments or whatever. But here's the overall benefits, right? You take the emotional volatility out of the game, and you just have civil, well-mannered debate. That's what Stoic philosophy will do for you. Stoic philosophy encourages independent thought and rejects collectivist mob pressure. and allows you to think independently. And then from a libertarian perspective and a constitutional perspective, you then are free to associate with other people who share your opinion. Stoic philosophy promotes resilience against the social or political coercions, resilience against cancel culture, and empowers you as an individual to speak freely, to think freely, and speak freely. Now, you may have to defend your opinions. It depends on what platforms you're doing this in. And you may create hard feelings, but still, as a free individual, you can think and speak freely. And then from a libertarian perspective on all this political stuff, Stoicism counters the victimhood culture and state dependency and state supremacy that we see in modern politics. And it reinforces self-reliance and rational, well-mannered discourse over mob rule or authoritarian solutions. There you go. Stoicism in politics. All right, moving on. Let's talk about modern business, the current state of modern business. And I'm talking general terms here, but really kind of a from a bigger, overall corporate perspective, right? These behemoths and whatnot, but also maybe even these mom and pop shops that feel like they have to conform to certain things. The corporate culture, which pressures conformity. Like that's what the corporate, and I'll give you just a little side example here. My daughter works for Mellow Mushroom. Now, I worked for Mellow Mushroom back in the early 90s. And it was still little independent shops, and they were just little, what you would just call a pizza joint. You know what I'm saying? Some of the employees were back in the freezer smoking weed. We played whatever music we wanted. It was just a little, bike messenger-y sort of, just a joint, right? Just a pizza joint. Well, as you all may know, Mellow Mushroom kind of got big, right? They started growing and expanding. And then they started exporting their corporate model, and every store has to sort of conform. Like they've changed their logo, and they got specific shirts that the waitresses or the servers are allowed to wear, and things like that. And then on a bigger level, on some of these other, you get all these DEI initiatives and these ecological social governance mandates and shit like that where you got to do your mandatory training every quarter or every 6 months or whatever. And they threat brief you. You can't say this. You can't act like that. You're not allowed to, blah, blah, blah. And all of those things, all of that conformity, all that forced conformity, and all of these weird DEI ESG, blah, blah, initiatives are 100% in contrast and counter to individual merit, creativity, and genuine organic innovation. All of those things stifle those things. Individual merit, creativity, or organic, genuine, true, ground up innovation. All of those weird initiatives and this corporate culture. And that's one part of what's going on in business today. And it probably has been for a long time, just in different ways. What's another trait or characteristic of the state of modern business? Consumerism. Well, these corporations push it, man, because the corporations are chasing, they're really chasing long-term and short-term profit, but short-term profit chasing and instant gratification. They're playing on the general public and the general vibe of modern social media and even modern comedy and things where everything is short little bites, and you consume, and you got about a 3-minute attention span, and then you move on. The instant gratification dominates business strategies these days. And I talked about this in one of my podcasts, the disposable society, where everything's, buy. It's trashed. You just disregard it and then buy some more instead of, well, I'll just say, let's use furniture, for instance. Everybody goes and buys the $800 whole living room set. And, 2-3 years later, you got to go buy a new living room set. Whereas you save up, buy some quality, maybe hand built, furniture that, our grandparents, think back to our grandparents. And if some of you even remember maybe your great grandparents, think about some of the furniture that they had. Like, I bet every one of you out there remembers a damn dresser or some kind of kitchen sort of dresser cabinet or whatever that's been around since the friggin' early 1900s. Yeah. Quality, longevity. Yeah, man. That's not what's going on in the consumerism lifestyle right now. What else is prominent in modern business? And it's probably always been this way. Workplace stress. What do you know about that? Anybody? These high pressure environments, they want you to perform and they want to do DEI hires, but you got to perform yet conform. And then some of these businesses use fear tactics that creates more stress. You think you may at any moment could lose your job, or that if you fail any little piece of a task that you're out of there. Or, and if you're a high performer, or if you are a high performer surrounded by low performers, you might get burnout, man. You might get stressed just from burnout, just from picking up the slack. But you got these initiatives that whatever. And that's why those kind of things don't promote, excellence or performance, those initiatives. If it's not merit-based, then why would you put out? And in some of these companies, you gotta make some ethical compromises. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the COVID, friggin' era from early 2020 on through. Some people are still lingering around this shit. Get this shot or lose your job. Well, it's not a mandate, but you have a choice. You don't have to get it, but you'll lose your job. So by default, it became a mandate. And some people didn't want to do that, and they shouldn't have to, and they shouldn't have had to. Or you lose your job if you don't use the right pronouns on someone. Somebody you might never not know from Adam, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that workplace stress from just a bunch of different shit, but yeah, that. Or maybe even safety. I'm pretty sure Amazon had there's a lot of safety issues in these big mega, not factories, but mega warehouses where they got all this automated shit. But then you got humans running around getting run over by robots and shit. Think about that, man. There's all kinds of ways to have workplace stress. It ain't just, I don't make enough money and I work too many hours. That's just the obvious. There's all kind of other stuff going on. So, in light of all that, the consumerism, the corporate culture, and the workplace stress, how can we apply Stoic philosophy, like actually apply it to our daily work life or our corporate work life? Well, from the perspective of Epictetus, focus on what you control in business. All right, your effort, your work ethic. You can control your effort, right, and your work ethic, and the decisions that you make in a day on whether or not something will be more productive or less. That's what you do, right? No matter what you think. If you work for someone else and or yourself, put out 100% effort, show strong work ethic, i.e. the effort, but being on time, being a good steward of your equipment or your resources or things in the workplace, and make good decisions that benefit the company, not just yourself. When you work, even owning your business or even working for someone else, every decision should be, how does this benefit the company? Not, how does this benefit me? And then secondary, will this benefit the company? I'm not sure. Yeah. Don't focus on things you can't control, market fluctuations or the actions of your competitors or, well, a lot of times local regulation, but specifically state and federal regulation. It's hard to control that stuff. You can be active in your local politics and try to have some influence on things. And you should, by the way. I think local politics is important. State level, yeah, that's important for sure. That's still considered local politics. Federal regulation, yeah, it's kind of hard, I imagine. So focus on what you can control, not on what you can't control. That's from Epictetus. If you're a small business owner and you're dealing with all these regulatory hurdles, focus on coming up, adapting and alternatives, creative alternatives that you can control. So think to yourself, all right, if they do this, if they come up with this regulation, I have a workaround. Get ahead of the game. Don't be reactive, be proactive. Don't moan and groan and lament the tyrannical government overreach, which we all do, right? Do bemoan tyrannical government. Just don't let it hinder your productivity. Yeah, and your forward motion. So if you're up on what the local politics and something's coming down the pipe or going up for a vote or something, anticipate, get ahead of it. How is this going to affect my business? Will it affect my business? If so, how? And then what can I do to get around it? It might not cost you any money. It might not do anything. It might just be a simple procedural thing that you can work around. Yeah. It might cost you a freaking arm and leg. Who knows? From the perspective of Marcus Aurelius, prioritize virtue over profit. Yeah, that's what I said. Virtue and integrity over profit. Now that's going to come to some people's ears and be, what do you mean? Whoa. Profit. Make the money, make the deal, take the sponsorship, whatever. Make your decisions based on your integrity, not external validation or short-term wins that can't be sustained as long-term wins. And I'll add this emphatically, not at the expense of someone else. Don't gain anything off the back of someone else because that's ill-gotten and it will go away. If you're a boss of a company and you resist the pressure to take on some trendy, sort of DEI, whatever, coercive corporate policy, right? And you're rejecting it in order to be really truly fair and to really recognize people's merit, then that is a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Because by definition, true fairness and legitimate merit negate any DEI, whatever. What was it called in the 70s? Affirmative action type stuff. Where, okay, we're hiring. We're a fire department and we're hiring. And out of the academy, we got 5 viable candidates. 4 of these viable candidates were physically superior in every way. 2 of them were intellectually and academically superior in every way and showed excellent leadership potential. But we need a woman. And the woman was marginal in this or that. She had extreme weak physical scores and then marginal academic scores, but we need a woman. So the woman gets hired, and I'm not just hating on women right here. I'm just giving you a pretty cut and dry example of affirmative action in action. And I only say those things because, yeah, I've seen that exact situation go down. Now, let me caveat, folks, that don't mean there's not physically fit women out there who can do the job. There are plenty. I can pull up just any number of CrossFit competition videos and show you women who will just burn down any firefighter standard that exists any soldier standard that exists. There are some highly capable, physically fit women and men out there. But from Seneca's perspective, he tells us, to use obstacles and setbacks as opportunities. Find opportunity in everything. These roadblocks or these outright failures even, or your economic low tides, or you're in a slump. Use those as chances to innovate. Find creative ways to mitigate the pain of those things. And that'll help you get stronger against newly discovered problems. Yeah, once you start getting a whole sort of index of, okay, I got this contingency in case of these two things. I got this contingency in case this happened. The more contingencies you build up early in the game, the better you're going to be. The better you're going to be. And that'll help you bomb-proof your contingency plans for future stuff, for future regulations, for future, generational, whatever the generational sort of mood is, to where my son enlightened me to a thing called, I think he called it the millennial stare. You walk into a sort of like maybe a fast food restaurant, and there's a young dude at the cash register, and he's just looking at you with a blank stare, and you're just looking at him. There's no, may I help you? What do you have? What the fuck do you want? Nah, there's nothing. It's just a blank stare. So you stand there for a second, waiting, giving that young man an opportunity to greet you, like a good customer service representative. So you stand there for a second, and then you look at him, and then you kind of go, huh, I guess I'll have 2 eggs and a side of bacon. The millennial stare. I'm going to start using that. I like it. It's funny. The goal here, from Seneca's perspective, use all these negative things as opportunities to what will help you create bomb-proof contingencies. That's the goal right there, folks. To be able to shake off anything that comes your way and keep going forward. If you're the brilliant entrepreneur of a failed startup, reflect on it. Use the lessons learned. Like where did it go wrong? Get some input from other outside sources and do a little self-reflection. But then, like, literally write those lessons learned down. Don't spiral into a pity party of despair with yourself, because you're the only one at that party. You know what I'm saying? Nobody's feeling sorry for you. Everybody will give you, oh man, tough luck, better luck next time. Yeah. Hey, that was a good idea though. Well, maybe it was a grand idea, and you just, you didn't go about it right. So yeah, lessons learned, man. Just do some reflection. Figure it out. Figure out what went wrong, or what few things went wrong. Try to conceptualize those. Try to put them into words. Write them down, and then use them in your next phase of planning. Yeah, don't go into your own little private pit of despair. Go to the pub, knock out 1 or 2 Guinnesses. Share some. Hey, the stranger sitting next to you at the pub may be a complete moron, or he may be a retired guy from a business that he ran for 30 years, and he's retired at the age of, 60, because he's got all the money he needs, and he's got the house and the grandkids, and he's good to go. And he was wildly successful. You don't know who's sitting next to you at the pub, folks. Say, yeah, this is what happened. Maybe he can help. You don't know. So how does this Stoic philosophies benefit us in business discourse? Well, one, first and foremost, it fosters ethical leadership. Yeah, leadership. Lead with integrity. It aligns with libertarian emphasis on voluntary exchange, responsibility. Yeah, we keep seeing these parallels with Stoicism and libertarian values. These Stoic philosophies encourage long-term thinking over short-term reactive profit-driven decisions. I told you, folks, I'm in the game for the long haul on the range. I've been in it. Well, my LLC we've been up and running since 2017. So, what is that? 8 years. That's not long term by any stretch. I'd say, I guess you could consider that midterm, depending on what business you're in. I still feel like it's very short term. I feel like we just started. I don't know. It feels like a lifetime, and then it feels like a week ago. You know what I mean? But I've never been profit focused. I want to provide and build a reputation for quality, delivering quality. A lot of people equate price with quality, and sometimes that's true, but sometimes it's not. My goal is to build the shooting community, to build a bigger shooting community. And that means bringing in people who don't have money falling out of their wallets to go buy a different model staccato every couple months. So, yeah, I'm not profit driven. I'm about building a long-term reputation and long-term clients. Yeah. Stoicism builds resilience in high-stakes environments, folks. High-stakes environments. You can take the hits because you're strong as an individual thinker. It kills any reliance on external validation or any external source of government bailouts, for instance. Yeah. Or a good review. Like, I don't know. Some people put a lot of stake in what people say online or what their little comment sections are or whatever. I don't really. I'm a face-to-face kind of guy anyway, but yeah. Even though you don't see me on screen right now, I don't consider screen face-to-face. And parallel with libertarianism, Stoicism supports free market principles, folks. And it pushes self-discipline. It pushes innovation, genuine innovation. And it fights against cronyism. And it resists the regulatory state because the regulatory state distorts natural, voluntary business interaction. It distorts the market. Yep. Business. Stoic philosophy and how it applies to business. All right. Boom. Moving on. Now, how can we apply? Well, let's talk about modern daily life. I'm not talking about politics. I'm not talking about work. I just mean daily life. Some of the challenges that we see, that we face just every single day, all day, every day. Number one is god dang information overload. And hell, I'm a part of that. I'm trying to give you information. I'm just among so much noise. But even just constant notifications on your phone. I just had one. As I was saying that, I had a notification on my little Fitbit smartwatch right here. I got a package out for delivery. Constant stimulation, constant notifications. Yeah. For some people, that creates anxiety. Well, it definitely creates distraction. 100%. I just got distracted, literally. And it creates anxiety for some people because they're constantly looking for whatever the next notification is. And then check this out. Then the absence of that creates anxiety for some people. Like it's been too silent for too long. What's going on? Yeah, we're developing a dependence on this shit. So that's a big one. Information overload. That's a big challenge to modern life. Then we got materialism and consumerism. But the materialism is your sort of social and cultural pressure to equate success with just wealth or status. You see this in the hip hop culture. Everything's, Bentley. You got to have some big like G-Wagon or Bentley or whatever. And you got all the gold and you got the sneakers that cost $300 and you got all this status. Look at Jay-Z with his status, right? He's the mogul. Is that what success means? Yeah. Not for me, man. I mean, yeah, not for me. Not for me. What success means for me, well, one is that I'm delivering quality to my clients because I develop relationships with my clients. I mean, I genuinely consider, probably 90% of my clients friends. Do you know what I mean? And that might be a mistake. That might be a tactical business mistake, but who knows? But what do I equate with success? I mean, the health and welfare of my grandkids, man. When I go over to their house and my grandson goes, pow, pow, and comes and runs and gives me a big hug. Bro, that's a big success, isn't it? That's the biggest. That's the best success. When my wife looks at me all goo-goo in the face for no reason and gives me a big hug and tells me how much she loves me, man, that's success right there. Get away from the materialism. And then social pressure, your echo chambers, your team, always judging, right? Do you have the right opinion about this? If not, oh my God, you must be, if you're not 100% with us, you're our enemy. The social pressure that are affecting everything from, I mean, even your personal choice, even the clothes you wear. In high school, probably that's a big thing, right? Everybody wants to dress cool. They want to get ripped on. I remember when I was in junior high, I went to Forest Park Junior High School. And look, man, we were poor. That's it. And my dad would buy me used sneakers from the thrift store. And I would go to school wearing these used sneakers from the thrift store. And I would get absolutely ripped for being poor, for having secondhand sneakers. Did it make me feel bad? Yeah. And I did very much feel like, well, I was definitely being judged, but when I ran track and I did pole vault and some other things, you know, I insisted that my dad buy some like Nike track shoes, like some proper track shoes. Now, fortunately back then, track shoes didn't cost that much money with the spikes and whatnot. But I was like, and that was strictly because of the ridicule that I got in school daily for my poor kid sneakers. So, yeah, your social group, there's a lot of judgment out there everywhere. I think there's a lot of that going on in some of the churches, folks, I think. And then if you are an individual and you're a nonconformist, you know, and then you got people looking at you and making snickering and whatnot. So, you know what? F those folks. Don't let social pressure shape what and how you do, but what you consider your values. All right. That was just, three sort of things, right? Information overload, materialism, and social pressure. So what can the Stoic applications, how can we rise above that? Well, from the Epictetus perspective, you control where you put your attention. You control how much weight you give someone's comment. You control that. How much weight you give to a smart-ass comment. You can control that. You can also limit your time on some of these friggin' platforms. Or like me, I'm on the socials a lot, but I might react, with a little emoji, a little heart emoji here and there. But I avoid getting into these protracted arguments because you could spend the rest of your life arguing with people on social media. There's probably a bot at that. But don't get out. I scroll social media with no sound on. I don't want to hear it. and only if it's a very compelling picture will I even stop to see what's going on. I told you folks, guns, motorcycles, Land Rovers, curvy women, and then like tiny homes and log cabins. I like those too. But very rarely do I stop and get into I do look at some politics stuff, but social media is not the place to get your politics, good people. You need to go above and beyond on that. Limit your time on the socials. Don't get outraged at every single thing. Be more purposeful in where you put your focus. Yeah, like as soon as, for instance, instead of sitting around, it's real easy to start scrolling, and then an hour later you pop your head up and you're like, geez, man. Just like I'm about to do today. As soon as I'm done with this podcast, guess what? Going to the gym. And make time for the things that matter. Well, you know what I mean? Go to the gym instead of doom scrolling. I do Audible books. I'm reading The Gift of Fear right now with by David DeBecker. It's pretty awesome. You should read it. The Gift of Fear. Be more purposeful with where you put your time and your focus. From Marcus Aurelius's perspective, your daily actions should align with the virtuous characteristics. Make choices based on reason and integrity and not societal expectations. Make your choices on your reason and your integrity. Instead of sitting around doom scrolling all day, or instead of playing video game all day, go take a walk. Go have a conversation with a homeless guy. Go take him to lunch. I mean, there's just so many things you can do in a day. So many things you can do in a day. Choose a job or a lifestyle based on your values, not whatever status you're chasing or your peer pressure. And my daughter is a prime example of that. She don't quite know what she wants to do with herself. And she's a server at the Mellow Mushroom. She don't quite know what she wants to do with herself. And she's not caving to, well, I don't pressure her. I just want her to be successful in whatever she does. I don't care if she's the best server on the planet, if she's happy doing it. But if you're chasing clout and status, you might make yourself all right with the job you're doing. But as long as you still feel some genuine happiness, and for some of you out there, your job may not matter to you whatsoever. Like it's just a place to give you a paycheck. And then you go home and live your life. And on the weekend, you live your life. Or you have a job to where you can travel because that's what you value. So don't just think you have to go do that thing that everybody else has done. Or your parents say, well, I did this and you're doing this. It doesn't have to be that way. But there needs to be some personal satisfaction and fulfillment in there with your career and your lifestyle, the way you live daily. From Seneca's perspective, we practice sort of negative visualization, right? To prepare, like to be ready for challenges. So, and it's a funny thing. And I said this before that, expect the worst, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best. And that's exactly what this means, this negative visualization. And I think in Latin and I put this in Latin because it's premeditatio malorum. Chant that to yourself, man. Be prepared for the worst, but expect the best. And strive for the best. Aim for the best. But when something sideswipes you, don't be surprised. Don't be like, taken aback. Just throw up your guard, boom, block that shit, and keep punching. Yeah, that way it takes the fear out of it, the fear of the unknown. That's a big fear for some people. Well, visualize the unknown. What are the most likely challenges to arise? What's the worst possible challenge that could arise? Like, spend some time thinking about that, and then start working up some mental sort of alternatives to that. Like figure a way, okay, if this happens, if the worst of all possible things happens, is there a way to mitigate it? Or do we need to change direction? If so, how will that look? Just think about that stuff for 10 minutes and then drive on with your day. If you get mentally prepared and even, actually physically prepared for financial setbacks, and then I got a couple grand in the bank. So if my transmission goes out, all right, it won't be that big a deal. I might have to take a half a day off work to take my car to the shop and then catch a ride to work and back. And hopefully in a day or two, my transmission will be done. So prepare for that. Mentally prepare for it. And then physically start preparing for it. If you're not preparing for what you think the worst of all possible scenarios is, you're slipping a little bit. And at minimum, you should be prepared for what most likely scenarios. Right? What are some likely things that pop up in daily life? How can I be ready for that? That way, when shit like that happens, folks, you maintain your composure. And if you maintain your calm and your composure, then you can maintain some clarity. Yeah, some clarity. Then you can just solve the problem and drive on. or put a Band-Aid on the problem at least and drive on. Yeah. So how does Stoicism benefit our daily lives? Out of all those things I just talked about, I just said it. The key word here is clarity. Stoicism enhances our mental clarity and our emotional maturity and resilience. And it helps us become independent from external systems or external validation. Yeah. A lot of us are dependent on external validation. And it does feel good when somebody validates you. It feels good. But it don't build a need for that validation. Stoicism promotes our intentional living, our purpose. We can intentionally drive for a purpose. And it very, very clearly aligns with libertarian values of individual freedom and responsibility, just like all the other things I've said so far. Stoicism encourages gratitude and contentment, folks. It encourages us to be thankful for what we have. And the things we have, we be content with those things that, like, yeah, maybe we want better, but systematically we can strive to get those things. But it kind of counters the consumerism pressure that we talked about, or the materialism. Yeah, I want a cool motorcycle. I do. I had to sell my cool motorcycle, but look, I'm grateful to have the vehicle I got. I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful that I got a 73 Ford sitting out in the driveway right now with a bad starter. I'm going to get it fixed. I ain't there yet. And obviously, the alignment with libertarian perspective is that the Stoicism, just like every other subject I've talked about so far, empowers individuals to live authentically without relying on external authority, without the need for societal validation or approval. And it truly, truly, truly embraces individual independence. You can enjoy all those other things, folks, but it's important that you don't need those other things. All right. I want to say in closing, but I always say that and then carry on for another half hour. So Stoicism, through Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and Seneca, it is clearly timeless philosophy. Been around since, I don't know, I don't remember the time of Epictetus. I want to say 300 and something BC. 500 and something BC, maybe. And it's a timeless philosophy that has given us the tools, even back then, to navigate societal challenges, but even specifically modern American challenges. Those tools are still good tools to navigate modern American challenges. All the political divisiveness, the business pressures, work pressures, and all the personal struggles that we go through. Because Stoicism emphasizes our self-control, our virtue and integrity, and our resilience, our toughness, our ability to fight through. And then the libertarian alignment with that, I'm always going to do a libertarian spin. Stoicism focuses on individual agency and rational choice. And that's exactly libertarian aligned. And it encourages self-reliance, and it encourages absolute resistance to coercive systems. Absolute resistance to coercive systems. I'm not saying violent resistance, people. There is a time and place for that, but this ain't the time and place. Now, I want you guys to notice that I haven't mentioned Christianity until now. So I'm going to ask the question, do the Stoic principles and the libertarian principles align with the foundational principles and behaviors that are found in Christianity? What do you think? You know my answer, right? Yeah, they do. Of course they do. Absolutely they do. Because Christianity promotes all of these things. The only difference, the only nuanced difference is yes, we self-control, virtue, resilience, resistance to coercive systems. But as opposed to self-reliance, Christianity, first and foremost, encourages reliance on God and on the words of Jesus. And then self-reliance. They are very compatible. So I kept talking about application of Stoic philosophy. What are some actionable things? What are some actionable things we can do? Well, daily reflection. If you're not a praying person, then a daily reflection. Spend 5 minutes in the morning, whether you pray or whether you journal or whether you meditate, whatever it is, to get yourself right with the day, to get yourself in the right mindset to control your actions throughout that day. And that's in line with Epictetus's control what you can. Don't worry about what you can't. So if you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long, getting yourself right, getting your mindset, whether it's just sitting at the table with a cup of coffee in complete silence before you click the news on. Yeah, whatever it is. I think that's an actionable thing. That's a thing you can take with you. After you listen to this, you can go, you know what? I can spend 5 minutes with myself in the morning. Yeah. A virtue check. Do a virtue check every time before making a decision, before actioning a decision. Hell, before speaking words in a conversation. Do a virtue check. Is it just? Is what I'm about to say or do just? Is what I'm about to say or do true? That's from Marcus Aurelius. Do a virtue check on yourself. Is what I'm about to say or do just and true? If it's not, guess what, folks? Don't do it. Don't say it. If it is, drive on knowing that you have put thought into a thing. And at the very minimum, it might be the shittiest idea on the planet, but if it's true and just and it doesn't violate anyone else, then you're good to go. What else? Make contingency plans, even on a small scale. This doesn't mean like if a tornado hits my house. Yeah, you need a contingency plan for that, for sure. That's why people have home insurance and things like that, and dudes have generators and all this. Those are obvious things. Make contingency plans for little things, for projects at work. Visualize the setbacks that could happen. Look at all the potential contingencies. If this happens, I'm going to do this. If that happens, I'm going to do this. And make a rational plan. I don't care how minimal it seems. Make a rational plan. And then think it over in your head. Visualize it. All right, if this happens, if this bad thing happens, here's what it might look like. And then here's the actions I might take. All right, let's move. Yeah. Make contingency plans for everything, no matter how small. Don't dwell in them. Don't become obsessed. Just do a quick thought, just like I just did. So far, where are we at? We did daily reflection, right? We did virtue check, contingency plan. And then finally, make an effort, a deliberate effort to engage with anyone or everyone rationally. Whether it's politics or business or just daily life, pause, use what we used to call tactical patience, take a breath, especially if it's in a heated debate or argument. Just pause, take a breath, assess your emotions, think about a dispassionate reason to answer, and then deliver that shit dispassionately. You will keep the upper hand if you can do that. Good people, I've lost the upper hand many a time for being angry. Even if I was absolutely right, technically speaking, I've lost the upper hand many times out of anger. Engage with everyone and everything rationally, even if it's a political opponent or even if it's a business competitor. Hell, even with competitors, you should be friendly. And you should be friends even. Hell, share business tricks and tips. Duh. You're gonna be better for it. Everybody will be better for it. So engage rationally, folks. Use tactical patience when you're dealing with folks, because I have not done that in my life. All right, good people. That's what I had for you. We talked about Epictetus. We talked about Marcus Aurelius. We talked about Seneca and how to apply their philosophies in politics and business and daily life. And then we And then we talked about the sort of libertarian parallels with Stoicism. And then I felt compelled to put a blurb in there, even the parallels with Christianity. And then I gave you 4 practical things that you can apply to daily life to be more like the Stoics. Yep. Reflect, do a daily reflection, do a virtue check on everything you're about to do or say, create a contingency plan for everything you're going to do physically, and then engage with people, all people, rationally. And now you can show a little passion here and there, yeah, for sure. But when you're explaining your position, deliver it even-keeled, smooth, cool, calm, and collected. All right, folks, as always, I want you to please share your thoughts with me, specifically on these Stoic principles. I know it's kind of I don't know, you see a lot of Stoic quotes, go across the internet, but how many people actually take time to get into those? I don't know. But share your thoughts with me on these Stoic principles and these things that I talked about, these actionable takeaways I gave you. Do you think you could or should apply these? Do you apply these things already? Are these things you know? And give me your feedback, folks. So genuinely want to hear what you think, and I genuinely want to hear your ideas on topics and things like that. And please do go on whatever your favorite platform is and subscribe, or share with your friends and tell them to subscribe to the podcast. And go on the website and all that. And we got a lot of shooting stuff coming up with OSS, folks. OspreyShootingSolutions.com. We got a lot of shooting stuff. The OSS Challenge Mogadishu Mile is next Saturday, October 4th. Start time, 10 a.m. We've got a few people signed up, but not that many. I expect by the end of the week, we'll probably have 20 folks signed up. That's what I'm shooting for. So please do that. Go on to teamguys.com. We've got 2 land navigation courses coming up. We have a 2-day land nav course in November, and that one is 1 day in the classroom and 1 day in the Black's Bluff Preserve. It's not an overnighter. And then in December, we have a 3-day land nav course. That's 1 day in the classroom and then 2 days in the Talladega National Forest, and that one is an overnighter. And then please check out the juntopodcast.com, not just for the podcast, but also for the blogs. And again, don't forget, folks, you can write a paper and send it to me, and I will maintain the integrity of it. I won't change any of the content at all. And I will, if it's not too inflammatory, I'll go ahead and post that up. And other than that, folks, I appreciate you all for listening. Thanks for sticking with me. We have probably about 7,000 listeners or so right now, and I'm grateful for that. I don't know if that's good or bad or otherwise, but I appreciate you listening. So while you're out there, folks, stay rational. Be rational. Stay free. As free as you can. Be free. Treat each other with respect and have some good manners in your daily interactions, good people. All right. I love you guys. Talk to you next time.